Hi guys, welcome to my channel. I'm Lisa, and in this video you're going to see how I've completed this Highland Cow from start to finish. In the description below I'll put a list of the paper, pencils and any tools that I've used to complete this. So if you like this video, remember to like and subscribe for more to come in the future. I'll be having some cards and prints made up of this design, so if you're interested to see any of those, remember to check out my Etsy page, will be in the link below. Then at the end of this video, I'll be putting this piece into a custom handmade frame ready to be sold. So if you'd like to see how I completed the frame, check out my other video with the stag and how to build the frame. Now let's get started drawing the Highland Cow. So for the start of this one, I went in with the dark sepia and just lightly outlined the eye. Then I went in with some of the brown and reddy colours and put in some underlayers, and then went over again with the dark sepia, making sure just to go around those white sort of creamy hairs that are coming from the eyelashes. To get the eyelashes in there really clearly, I did go in with an embossing tool and embossed a couple of lines to make sure that I don't lose the white and light section of it, and then just went over really lightly with the ivory, and also put a little bit of sky blue in there to make it seem a little bit more light and whiter. So from here I just started adding in some of the fur around the eye. So what I usually do is just go in with the burnt ochre and put in the darker section so that I can get an outline and a base of where the darker colours go. And then I go over with the ivory pencil, a bit of beige red, and add in the sort of middle tones of the fur. And then I start to get darker with the sanguine, middle cadmium red, burnt sienna, walnut brown, and then some of the darker colours. And you can even go in there with some dark sepia to get those really deep shadows in the crevices. So one of the main textures I wanted to speak about in this piece was the horn texture. So the main thing you need to do is just make sure that you go in with really light layers and gradually build them up. So I started with this one, going in with an ivory pencil and putting down a base because it was sort of like a warm creamy colour. And if there was some areas that were sort of grey tone, I would then go in with a warm grey one and glaze that over. Then you just need to pay really close attention to the reference photo to see where those mid-tones are and the different colours. So there's some blues, pinks, purples, red colours in this horn, so making sure that you're putting those in the right spots. And then you can go in with your burnt sienna, caput mortuum violet, walnut brown and dark sepia and start to get those really deep colours to make it look like that really deep horn texture. So I would go in with a couple of layers of colour and then add in some of the darker colours and then glaze over with the Holbein soft white and smush all the colours together and make it die down a little bit. So you need to remember as well with the horn texture and also with this type of fur, it does take a long time to build up the colours and get it to the place that you want it to be. And with the horn texture, I did go in with the white Holbein pencil and blend the colours together. So that's how you can see it sort of looks like a faded out look. But this isn't something that you only do once, like I did this a couple of times throughout each of the horns. So it's just more about building up the colours and then blending with the white waxy pencil, and then building up more colours and bringing it back down with the white waxy pencil, and then putting in the darker colours really gives it that depth of shadow and what you need to make it look realistic. So for the fur around the head and moving on to the muzzle, the main thing I do is go in with my burnt sienna pencil or the burnt ochre and then outline where all of the darker areas are and map them in so I can see the shape of the furs and which way they're going, and then build in the lighter tones like the ivory and pink and orange tones. And then you go in with the darker tones like the caput mortuum violet, burnt sienna, walnut brown, and then you can build in some blue and purple tones for shadow. Moving on to the nose, I first went in with my embossing tool because there's lots of light hairs coming off around the nose, so I wanted to make sure that I kept them in there. And then I went in with my lighter colours and outlined the shape of the nose. And then I also went in with the middle cadmium red, burnt carmine into that very dark nostril so I wouldn't lose that. And then it's just a matter of building up the tones with the browns, and I really loved putting the pink and the purple tones into this nose because I think it looks so effective. and then going in with the walnut brown and a little bit of dark sepia in the nostril to make it all stand out. And then I went into the very light highlights on the nose and put in some Holbein soft white pencil, which allows you to put some really light colours in there to create some more depth. And then when I was ready to fill in the body and start to put in all the fur, I needed to make sure that this piece was going to fit in the frame that I've made. So I've made a really beautiful wooden frame for him to go in, and I had to measure out and ensure that he was going to fit in the frame properly. And then I put some masking tape down either side so that when I peel it off, I get some really crisp edges. In the description below, I'll put a list of what I've used, but it is just Scotch Magic Tape because I find that it doesn't really pull up much of the paper when you take it off and gives you a really crisp edge. So for the ear on this one, I went in with my embossing tool, and I also went in with my Holbein soft white and put down some white waxy pencil just to create a little bit of resist so I could keep some of the areas lighter that I wanted. And then it's just a matter of going in and starting to build up the colours, so putting down the ivory colour and then building up the yellows, oranges to all of the browns, and then putting in a little bit of blue and purple along with the walnut brown and dark sepia. So then moving on to the fur at the back, I started to put in the lighter colours and mapping out the shapes of the curls and which way the fur was going, and then just building it up, getting it darker and starting to add in the shadows. So for some of the shadow colours I put in the manganese violet and also a bit of dark indigo because it gives it a little bit more depth without making it sort of look flat when you're just using browns and black grey tones. And when putting in the fur, it's important to make sure that you're paying really close attention to your reference photo and making sure that you're putting all of the fur in the right direction that it's going in the reference photo, and it's also the same length. So if I went into the back of the animal and started putting in really short fur lines, it wouldn't look realistic because the fur on the animal is really long and sort of scraggly. So when all of the fur is in there and you've got a lot of the texture down, this is when you can start looking at your reference photo and having a look at where you need to make things darker and where you might need to etch out some of those lighter highlights with either your scalpel or using the white Holbein pencil to put in a little bit of shadow and a bit of highlights. So at this point of the piece, I've left it for a couple of days and then I've come back to it, had a really close look at the reference photo and even got some feedback from people, and then started to add in some different shadows, highlights, going into certain areas a lot darker and really putting in all of the final details. So this one is all done. Very exciting, and what a relief. This one took me, I think, about 15 to 18 hours all up from start to finish, and I'm so happy with how it's turned out. Like I said before, I'll be making some prints and also some cards on this, so they'll be available on Etsy, so make sure to check that out if you're interested. Remember, if you like this video, to like and subscribe for more videos to come in the future. Let me know in the comments below what you think of my Highland cow, and this is the final result.